Before she was kicked off social media, Laura Loomer used it to attain an amount of influence that would not have been attainable in any other manner. Photograph by Mark Peterson, Redux on Tuesday. Florida's 21st Congressional District, where President Donald Trump now legally resides, and where he recently voted via mail-in ballot, held a congressional primary election. The four-term incumbent, a 72-year-old Democrat named Lois Frankel, won her primary easily. On the Republican side, however, there was an upset. The victor, by nearly 20 percentage points, was Laura Loomer, a 27-year-old whose campaign website describes her as a conservative investigative journalist and a loyal supporter of President Donald J. Trump. As the returns came in, hundreds of Loomer's supporters gathered, indoors and unmasked, of course, sticking it to the libs by endangering themselves, for a raucous victory party at a Hilton in Palm Beach. Milo Yiannopoulos, a professional troll and washed-up internet demi-celebrity, served as the MC. Also in attendance was Roger Stone, the notorious political dirty trickster who was convicted of lying to investigators about connections between the 2016 Trump campaign and Russia. Stone, whose 40-month prison sentence was recently commuted by the president, introduced Loomer as someone who is fearless in her defense of America and the Joan of Arc of the conservative movement. Then an EDM anthem dropped, "You shoot me down, but I won't fall, I am titanium," and Loomer took the stage. Laura Loomer is a conspiracist in the paranoid American style, an unreconstructed gorilla from the internet culture war, and a nightmare apparition of our present and future politics. She is a virulent, unrepentant Islamophobe, a characterization that she does not contest except to argue that Islamophobia is an oxymoron. A phobia, by definition, is an irrational fear or hatred, and she considers her antipathy toward all forms of Islam to be perfectly rational. I know this because, for much of 2017 and 2018, I reported on the loose affiliation of goons, bigots, and web-savvy grifters known as the alt-right. During that time, I spent dozens of hours with Loomer, eating at Katz's Deli, before attending a Yiannopoulos book party on the Bowery, riding shotgun in Loomer's car from Washington, D.C., to New York while she ranted, almost without pause, about the treachery of the deep state, visiting her dreary apartment in Westchester, to interview her as she convalesced after a nose job. Technically, Loomer doesn't self-identify as alt-right, because many prominent alt-right figures are anti-Semites, if not outright neo-Nazis, and Loomer is Jewish. In many other respects, though, the description fits. She told me on various occasions that Muslims are the ones with real privilege in this country, that Fox News has been completely taken over by liberals, and that the Trump administration was too weak to confront such impending threats as mass migration, socialist indoctrination, and the global spread of Sharia law. Given the red meat Republican theatrics that have become commonplace in Florida, Ron DeSantis, the governor, recently compared his rushed reopening of schools to the commando raid that took out Osama bin Laden. Representative Matt Gaetz, of Florida's 1st District, mocked the pandemic by appearing on the House floor in a gas mask. It is hard to imagine how local Republicans could get any more cartoonish. The answer, unfortunately, is Laura Loomer. Great going Laura, Donald Trump tweeted on Tuesday. You've a great chance against a Pelosi puppet. Many of Trump's opponents made the obvious critiques, that it was unseemly for a sitting president to praise a woman who has called Muslims savages and who spent months trying to prove that the mass shooting in Las Vegas was a false flag, but they had no effect. On her campaign site, Loomer brags about being banned on nearly every single social media platform, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats, PayPal, Venmo, GoFundMe, Medium, Teespring, and even Chase Bank. She claims that these bans are acts of political retaliation for being a voice of the silent majority, and mostly for being a loyal Trump supporter. This is false. Each platform banned her for a specific post, usually an Islamophobic outburst, that violated one or more of its terms of service, but it seems to have been an effective political gambit. In some circles, a vote for Luma was construed as a vote against online censorship. "I never violated their terms of service," Luma said when reached for comment. Twitter hates Jews. One night in June 2017, Luma crashed a Shakespeare in the Park performance of Julius Caesar while live-streaming the disruption on Periscope. She was escorted out by police, who brought her to the station house, booked her, and let her go. Shortly afterward, I met her for a midnight burger, by which time she was already trending on Twitter. "Honestly, conservatives have no free speech in this country," she told me. She then excused herself from the table to take a call from one of Sean Hannity's producers, who was inviting her to appear on Fox News. Lou had streamed her own act of civil disobedience, and had reaped the benefits of the stunt without even having to spend a night in jail. Even so, she was already branding herself as a victim. "I often wondered whether I was giving people like Luma too much attention. If what they wanted was press, then wasn't my reporting on them part of the problem? I tried to remind myself that the real subject of my writing was not Luma and her cronies, per se, but the attentional structures that had enabled them to sneak toward the forefront of the American public square. In short, the screwed-up incentives of the social internet. In a few years, the disruptors of Silicon Valley had overhauled our entire informational ecosystem, rebuilding it around the lodestar of emotional engagement. What was once a complex and deeply flawed system, the Fourth Estate, more or less, had begun to devolve into a Darwinian struggle in which only the fittest memes survive. The platforms incentivized certain types of content, that which is designed to shock, titillate, radicalize, keep us glued to our screens, and, lo and behold, that was the kind of content we got. Those who stand to benefit from the current mechanics of social media, both outrage entrepreneurs, such as Luma, and far wealthier entrepreneurs, such as Mark Zuckerberg, avoid discussing this miserable state of affairs with much specificity. Instead, they usually pivot to abstract discussions of such lofty principles as free speech. There will always be a lunatic fringe, they argue. This is the inevitable price of freedom. But none of this was inevitable. Our attentional economy, like our industrial economy, was built by people, by us, and its current contours are the result of thousands of individual choices. Just as our industrial economy has led us to the brink of climate collapse, our social media economy is accelerating our political collapse. Every now and then, a social media platform will suspend one of its most egregious rule breakers, but this is generally too little, too late. Before Luma was the most banned woman in America, she was extremely, profitably online, working every day to amass a loyal following. Before she was kicked off social media, she used it to attain an amount of influence that would not have been attainable in any other manner. Luma's Florida district is a blue one, often called a safe Democrat district, but we should know by now that nothing is safe. Negative partisanship, the same force that inspired Luma's supporters to risk contracting the coronavirus in that Hilton on Tuesday night, could also propel her to victory in November. If she doesn't win, other congressional candidates, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene, a QAnon supporter in northwestern Georgia, surely will. In 2017 or 2018, when I was reminding myself why I had chosen to embed with the worst people on the internet, I could not have imagined that Luma would soon be within a margin of error of winning a seat in Congress. Even by the standards of those around me at the time, her behavior was unusually outlandish, her temperament unusually erratic. If I'd been asked to guess which of my cast of characters could possibly come within striking distance of real power, her name would have been near the bottom of the list. But I was underestimating the severity of the underlying structural problems. until we address those problems, both in our online economy and in our lives. To the extent that there's still any difference, things can always get worse. Let's block ads. Why?
Show your love for him. Click the link in description. Thanks for watching.